Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Celina Damian. I am the Student Loan Servicing Ombudsperson here at the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation. It's my pleasure to be here to share all this great information with you this afternoon. I will be talking about California rights and resources for student loan borrowers. Next, please. To start off, just a little bit about my agency. I am with the DFPI. We are California's consumer protection agency, and we regulate companies of financial products to ensure compliance, and this includes federal student loan servicers as well as private student loan servicers. We accept and we evaluate consumer complaints, and we take enforcement and legal action when companies are not in compliance. We also enforce all student loan related protections here in California, and we conduct education and outreach such as this one to enhance consumer awareness and to protect consumers from fraud and abuse. My role as the ombudsperson here within DFPI is to help student loan borrowers understand their options, their rights, all the forgiveness programs that are available, and I also help them work with student loan servicers and Department of Education when they are having issues. And then I also partner with agencies, nonprofit agencies, and then advocacy agencies to really spread the message about student loan debt, really help borrowers understand student loans. And so, which is why I'm here today, and I'm glad you are all here as well. Next, please. A little bit about, so now that we know DFPI, we are the Consumer Protection Agency. We do have a redesigned web page that you are all invited to check out when you have a chance. We have a new student loan information web page as well as our student loan complaint portal. So we just launched this website within the last month, and it is user-friendly and it has great information, not just about student loans, but about all the industries that we regulate. So we encourage Californians to check out our page. Next, please. So how much student loan debt do we have in California? We have 4 million borrowers that owe $141 billion of student loan debt. Most of that debt is federal student loan debt. And we have a small private portfolio private debt. The average debt load of a California borrower is $37,000, and the majority of debt is held by borrowers between the ages of 35 to 49 years of age. Women hold nearly 2/3 of the outstanding student loan debt, so the national total, and that's close to $929 billion. The default rate in California is 7.1%. And in the United States, borrowers owe almost $1.78 trillion of student loan debt, which is a growing consumer debt category, and it's slightly behind total mortgage debt in the nation. Next, please. One thing to note, and that we've realized within the past 5 to 10 years, is that there is a disproportionate amount of student loan debt that is held by women, low-income borrowers, and borrowers of color. Now, we know that there could be different factors that cause this, but some of these is the rising cost of tuition and fees at public colleges and universities, the racial wage gap resulting in less family support when a student is entering into their post-secondary journey. Predatory institutions and practices. This includes for-profit colleges. And then once a student graduates, the gender and racial pay gap once they enter the workforce. A borrower in a 75% minority neighborhood is 5 times more likely to fall behind on their student loan payments. Women, as I mentioned, hold nearly 2/3 of the national debt, and default rates are higher for Black borrowers, followed by Latinx borrowers and first-gen students. And one thing to note is that borrowers who enter default, most of those borrowers have an initial student loan debt balance of under $15,000. So students that are going into default are not typically the ones with the highest amount of debts. So they are ones that are struggling the most with that debt. Next, please. We also know that now we are seeing an impact to older Americans and student loan debt. Borrowers between the ages of or over the age of 50 hold a combined student loan balance of $400 billion in federal student loan debt. So this is information that was just recently released by the Department of Education late last year, and it showed how they're being affected. And the older that a borrower gets, the higher chance they are of being in default. So this is alarming because it will affect Social Security benefits. It can affect retirement age. So we know that this debt has been held for at least 15 years, and it's typically debt that was incurred for their own education. So it's not recent debt. It's typically a lot of these borrowers have been paying on their debt or have been paying for long periods of time, but they have not been able to pay down the balance. Next, please. Despite these numbers, we do know that there is a value of going to college, right? So we do know that there's a lifetime earning potential that's higher than those that don't have a higher education degree. So we still want to continue to encourage borrowers to attend college. We still want to support that higher education journey, but we want to be mindful, right, of student loan debt, and we want to start early and help borrowers to mitigate that debt. Next, please. Uh, in order to also help mitigate that debt in California, we do have borrower protections, right? So in 2021, the California legislature passed Assembly Bill 376, which is the Student Borrower Bill of Rights. This applies to borrowers with both federal and private loans. California is only one of about 10 states that have borrower protection. So we are very lucky in that sense, right? That we do have an additional protection. What this bill does is it prohibits servicers from engaging in abusive, unfair, or deceptive practices, and it requires that they work in the best financial interest of borrowers. And just to remind everyone, student loan servicers are the companies that are servicing the borrower's student loans. So they are for federal loans, it's going to be your Mohila, Nelnet, Ed Financial. These are the companies that are contracted through Department of Education to take the payments, process the payments, and maintain records. So servicers do have to provide borrowers with information and applications for income-driven repayment plans and other forms. So your PSLF, total permanent disability discharge, they have to provide you that information when you call. This bill establishes special protections for military borrowers, those working in public service, older borrowers, and those with disabilities. And it protects borrowers from any negative consequences stemming from a sale, assignment, transfer, system conversion, or payment made by the borrower to the original student loan servicer. Now, this protection is important, especially right now, because there are a lot of transfers that have been occurring. There have been a lot of changes in platforms, so it's just really important to keep that in mind. And then in California, a borrower has the right to take legal action against their servicer if they fail to comply with these laws. This is known as a private right of action, and a borrower can file a complaint with the DFPI, or you can contact me if you are not sure whether you can file a complaint. But typically, I encourage borrowers to file complaints if they are having issues just getting through to their servicers, if they're having issues obtaining their account history, any miscommunication, any misinformation. We really want to see those complaints, because that is how our agency will be able to take enforcement action against these servicers and hold them accountable as well. Next, please. Additional borrower protections in California, we do have what's called the Private Student Loan Collection Reform Act, and this applies to private education lenders or loan collectors. And it basically says that they may not initiate a loan collection action unless they possess certain documents, and a court may not enter a judgment in favor of the lender or collector unless these documents are introduced. They are 18 documents, 18 different documents that are required, and they include the information about the initial loan, the master promissory note, any documents, account history, payment history. Many times, a lot of these debt collectors buy these accounts that have been nothing has been going on for years, so they don't have this information and they try to collect. So this is to protect borrowers from these type of predatory collection actions. We also have the Student Loan Servicing Act in California, and then, of course, the Student Borrower Bill of Rights. We have updated our regulations to include income share agreements and retail installment contracts, and these rules became effective in 2024. So those are contracts that you enter sometimes with for-profit colleges or vocational technical academies for a percentage of your wages. And then you take a loan and promise to pay back a certain amount. So sometimes these companies don't provide employment assistance as they promise, and a borrower is still left to pay back the loan. Some of the federal protections are under the Higher Education Act. Those protections are laid out in your master promissory note, so make sure that you read those. Also, exit counseling, you'll see some of that information as well. Anytime you take out a loan, there's information there. And then for student loan borrowers who are also consumers, you have protections, consumer protections under the Truth in Lending Act and the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Next, please. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the ways that you can, one of my jobs really is in talking to borrowers and seeing how much debt has been incurred, and just the issues that borrowers do have when paying back the debt. I do work with borrowers and agencies and try to really think of ways that we can help mitigate the student loan debt, because as I said, there is still a value to going to college. So borrowers or students, right, and even parents want to start early, right? Preparation starts in high school. You want to have a clear understanding of the cost and options for financing higher education. The good thing now is that a lot of the information is online. You can go to a college website, a university website. You can look at the net cost or calculate an estimated net cost. You can look at transfer rates, graduation rates. It's very important to understand, right? The 4-year college now, we call that the 4-year college myth. A lot of students are not graduating within the 4 years. So it's really important that you start early, right? And make a plan, understand what it's going to cost you. The longer that you are in college, that you stay in the university, the more it's going to cost you, right? So have a clear understanding of those costs. Create a plan to graduate in 4 years. Understand your financial aid information, including your award letters. So understand what are the difference between grants and then your loans and your scholarships, right? We encourage all students to access all free aid before incurring student loan debt. Develop an academic map. Understand student loans, which is great. That's why you're here today. And then financial literacy is really an important aspect to helping to mitigate some of this debt. Next, please. So as I said, planning in high school, make sure that students are on track to graduate with at least a 3.0. That's so you won't miss out on some of those grants, right? The state grants in particular. Communicate with counselors and advisors. In California, we have the California Student Aid Commission that does a lot of great work with high school students. They conduct a lot of the FAFSA workshops, and they really help you keep on track with those deadlines, right? Take advantage of AP classes, dual and concurrent enrollment classes, so you can have some of those college courses completed by the time you graduate. As I said, choosing a college, consider the quality of the school, consider the graduation and transfer rates, and if unsure, consider community college. So this is very important. Now it's the high cost of college and the amount of student loan debt that is being taken on. It's just really important to look at the quality of the school, right? Look at your major and then determine if that school is going to help you get to your goal and then the career that you want. So don't select a school because you have a friend going there or because you really like that city, right? Really look at the net cost of the school and say, is this going to be a school where I can get my education, get the career I want, and that I will be able to afford, right? Then the school's net cost is the college's cost of attendance minus grants and scholarships received. And then also compare potential careers and salaries. As I said, everything now is online. You can go on the Bureau of Labor Statistics website and look at a specific career, a specific zip code, and you can find out how much a starting salary is for that career. And then that way you can look at, and then you can determine, right, if that school is a good choice for you, depending on the wages. And then there is something that is called return on investment, right, for student loans. And really, rule of thumb, never borrow more than you expect to earn in your first year after graduation. So how much earnings can you expect versus how much the degree costs? This is why planning in high school is really important. Next, please. And then, as I mentioned, financial literacy, some important financial terms for students, and really that everyone should know. And this is not just for student loans, right? Many times when students are off on their academic journeys and their first year of college, right? They're gonna need to know these important terms. So budget, know how to budget, right? It will help you avoid overspending, incurring debt, and running out of money. As a consumer protection agency, we also regulate other areas of finances, right? And we know that a college student is a target, right, for credit card companies, for many other financial providers. So you have no debt, right? You're being offered credit card, you're being offered a lot of other financial products. And if you don't understand these terms, then you may incur debt, not just student loan debt. So it's really important to know budget, saving, right? It's one of the most critical principles and habits for students to learn. Spending wisely, right? So budget spending in advance and track where it is going. And then borrowing, right? As I said, not just for student loans, but for credit cards, you may be offered those when you are in college. And then really understanding how the debt can impact in the future, how it can impact your credit scores and your credit report. So understanding credit and how they may affect you in the future when you are trying to make other purchases. Your student loans will most likely be your first uh, experience with credit, and they will be listed on your credit report under Department of Education for federal loans. So learn how to check your credit and make sure that everything is reported accurately as well. Next, please. And then student loan key terms, interest rate, understanding interest and how interest will affect the amount of money that you end up paying in the long run. For student loans, its rates are set by Congress every year. So know the interest that is being charged on your loans. You may have more than one student loan if you are borrowing every year. So really keeping track of those interests. Capitalization is unpaid interest added to the loan balance after periods of non-payment, grace period, forbearance, and deferment. So capitalization is very important to understand for student loans. Your grace period, the set period of time where you don't have to pay your loans after you graduate or drop below half-time enrollment. It's typically 6 to 9 months for federal student loans. And then understanding forbearance and deferment, it's temporary relief that is available to borrowers with federal student loans. You can request them to your servicer, or some of these are set automatically by the Department of Education, depending on certain situations. And just understanding that during forbearance and some deferments, your interest will continue accruing. Next, please. As I mentioned, the difference between well, the difference between lenders and servicers, I mentioned them earlier, Advantage, Mohila, Nelnet, and Aid Financial. So it's going to be really important that you understand who your servicers are. That way you can communicate with them. You can track all communications. For federal loans, the lender is the Department of Education, and then these are your student loan servicers. You may be switched your student loan servicer automatically. You can't just request to switch them, and then you may have more than one throughout the life of your loan. So it's very, very important that you understand who these are, who you've been assigned to, and you can always log on to your studentaid.gov account to confirm your servicer information. Next, please. And then types of federal loans. After 2010, all loans that are dispersed, federal loans are direct loans. So you're going to have your subsidized, your unsubsidized. The difference between both of these is interest, right? We talked about interest briefly. With the subsidized loans, the government pays the interest while you are in school, at least half time. And for unsubsidized, the interest accrues from the time of disbursement. So unsubsidized in the long run will be a little bit more expensive. And then you have your direct grad plus loans that are available to students pursuing grad or professional degrees. And then these are unsubsidized loans. And then you'll have your parent plus loans, which are available to parents of undergrad students. And then parent plus loans, just one thing to really keep in mind with these loans, they may be a little bit more riskier because there is the maximum amount that a parent can borrow. Does not consider their earnings. So a parent that is maybe a low to income or to medium moderate earner is able to take out as much loan as their student needs. So there is no consideration of their income, and then this loan cannot be transferred back to a child, and there is no grace period. Then you have your direct consolidation loans, and these are it's combining all your direct loans together. You can combine your direct loans and direct grad plus loans, as well as parent plus loans. Next, please. And then your private loans, these are going to be made by a lender such as the bank, a credit union, a state agency, or even the school. So these are completely separate than federal loans, and these are not funded or subsidized by Department of Education. They may have variable interest rates. They don't offer the flexible repayment terms and forgiveness options, often require an established credit record or a cosigner. And very important to note, once you refinance your federal loans into private loans, you cannot revert them back to federal loans. So be very careful when you are refinancing. Just make sure that you read the terms and really understand what protections you are missing out on if you refinance. And then, as I mentioned, the California Private Student Loan Collections Reform Act can help you if you are going through a collection process with your private loans. Next, please. And then prior to repayment, for those of you that are currently in college, and this should be pretty much every year. I wouldn't just say prior to repayment, right? Make sure you are reviewing your student loan history. Make sure you are tracking your loan balances and your interest rate for each loans. Know your loan type, so make sure that you know if it's a subsidized, unsubsidized loan, the name of your loan servicer for each loan, know the end of the grace period and your repayment start dates. And then very important, you can create an account on the your servicer portal and studentaid.gov to track these loans. Make sure you complete your mandatory exit counseling. Check your credit report. You will see those loans listed there as soon as they are dispersed. And then make sure you understand your responsibilities and your options. And then create a strategy to pay off the debt and then track any future debt. Next, please. And for federal student loans, you do have two different types of federal repayment plans. You're going to have your traditional repayment plans, which gives you a set amount of time to pay the loan with a fixed or a graduated monthly payment amount. Everyone who graduates or who goes into repayment is automatically placed on the standard repayment plan. So it's the default plan for all borrowers. And the standard repayment plan has you paying back your loans within a period of 10 years. So sometimes borrowers may, depending on how much balance they have, they may see higher payments under the standard plan. And then you have your graduated repayment plan and your extended repayment plans. Those are both over 20-year repayment plans. And then you have your other bucket. So the standard plans are just based on the balance. Then you have your IDR plans or income-driven repayment plans. These plans set your monthly payments at an amount based on your income and family size. So most federal borrowers are eligible for at least one of the IDR plans. You have your pay plan, your IBR plan, income-based repayment plan, your ICR plan or income contingent repayment plan, which is the only eligible plan for parent borrowers, and then your SAVE plan, which is currently blocked due to the court injunction. So you can use on studentaid.gov has a great student loan simulator where you can input your information and it can give you an estimate of your monthly payment amount. But if you are struggling with your monthly payments, or you want to check and make sure, you might be on the standard repayment plan and you might be able to switch over to a more affordable income-based plan. You will just have to certify your income on a yearly basis to maintain that amount. And so yeah, we really encourage that borrowers look at IDR plans before requesting forbearance or deferment if they're having trouble with their monthly payments. Next, please. So why do you want to stay on track for federal loans, for all loans really? You want to make sure that you're avoiding default, right? Delinquency for federal student loans, delinquency is the first day after you miss a student loan payment, and then your loan becomes past due or delinquent. So this can have an effect on your credit, right? That we will be reported to your credit, to the National Credit Bureaus as late. And then if you don't make payments after a period of at least 270 days, you are considered in default. So the consequences of default includes losing eligibility for additional federal student aid, which is really important, right? For some borrowers that still want to continue in their education, they don't want to miss out on additional aid. And then of course you'll get reported to credit bureaus, and then you have wage garnishment and withholding of tax refunds or federal benefit payments. There are a lot of resources to help you avoid default. And then, as I mentioned, you have those income-based plans, which will help lower your payments if you're having trouble. Next, please. And then your federal forgiveness and discharge programs. We have the most popular discharge program, which is the public service loan forgiveness. It is not only popular, but it's really one of the most effective programs. And we've seen millions of dollars in discharge for many California borrowers. So this program is for those that work in public service, and they can qualify for forgiveness of their remaining balance after they have made 120 qualifying payments while employed by a nonprofit or government agency. So you have to meet the requirements for 10 years. And then you have your teacher loan forgiveness. This is for teachers who work 5 complete and consecutive academic years in a low-income school. They may be eligible for up to $17,500 in forgiveness. So someone may be able to use the teacher loan forgiveness program and then jump onto public service loan forgiveness for discharge. Income-driven repayment forgiveness. Those income-driven repayment plans that I mentioned earlier have a forgiveness component to them. So some borrowers may be eligible for forgiveness after making payments for 20 or 25 years. It just depends on the plan. Total permanent disability discharge applies to borrowers who are totally and permanently disabled. So this is for federal loans, but there are some private lenders that have a similar discharge program. So if you have private loans, you may want to check with your lender. And then borrower defense discharge. This is for borrowers who attended a school that engaged in certain misconduct related to the making of a federal loan. So if you were promised employment, if you were promised a certain degree or certain that they could put you in a certain career path, and they basically defrauded you in order to make the loan, you may qualify for borrower defense discharge. Next, please. In California, we do have career-specific repayment assistance programs. These are administered through the Healthcare Access and Information Agency in California. As you can see, there's some for nursing professions, mental health professions, and then certain for dentists and physicians. So these are great programs, and they open up once a year during a certain period. So you can check their website to find out all the requirements and the application procedure. Next, please. In California, the DFPI has also created a great resource for borrowers. It's called the Student Loan Empowerment Network. We have created a network of 14 agencies throughout the state of California. A borrower that needs assistance, that is looking for information on their repayment options, on their forgiveness programs, even borrowers with private loans. So let's say you're dealing right now with a private loan garnishment or debt collection, or even if you're being sued in court, you can contact the Student Loan Empowerment Network. You can call them, or you can fill out a form, and you can receive free assistance through one of our agencies. You will be matched up depending on your need. It is really a great program. It launched in July, and you can be connected with an attorney, one of the legal aid organizations throughout the state. So it just depends on your need, but it's completely free and it's available for California borrowers. So I would really encourage those of you that, even if it's a general question, you can go ahead and contact the network. Next, please. So some key takeaways for borrowers: just make sure you exhaust grants, scholarships before accepting student loans, right? Those are for you that are still in college or maybe thinking about entering. Just remember, a loan is a legal obligation and has to be paid back whether you graduate or not. Only borrow what is needed and track the debt amount. Make sure that your contact information is updated with your student loan servicer and studentaid.gov with everything going on right now. If you're a borrower, and as you know, you really want to stay on top of that information, and then understand your options, right? So being here is number one. It's number one step, really attending this this day of information. Understand your options, and then find your trusted resources to assist you with forgiveness and repayment options. Next, please. And why is that important? As the Consumer Financial Protection Agency, we do have to really, let borrowers know that there are student loan and financial aid scams. Unfortunately, with everything going on, these companies, these scammers, target borrowers. They buy borrowers' informations, and they will attempt to contact borrowers, and they will promise forgiveness. They will promise a lot of things, right? So it is very important that you do not fall victim to these scammers. Know the name of your student loan servicers. If you are looking for scholarships or just entering school, right? You shouldn't be paying for scholarships or any type of financial aid seminars. They do target parents and high school students. If someone contacts you on the phone, or someone's trying to sell you something, whether it's related to student loans or financial aid, make sure you verify the information and research the company. You can easily just Google the company, and you will see all the complaints under the Better Business Bureau, and you can see all the information that is on there. Never give out your login information or your password, your pins Do not subscribe to any monthly service or sign a contract. And just remember, there's nothing that a company can do that you can't do on your own for free. If you are receiving multiple calls a day offering special access, if something is guaranteed, remember, it may be a scam. And this is just for everything in general. Make sure you file a complaint if you have been a victim of fraud, and then you can file a complaint with us, the Federal Trade Commission as well. Next, please. Some of your trusted resources, of course, as I mentioned, studentaid.gov is going to be your main portal. Have your servicer information. Student loan servicers recently updated their addresses to include, so now they'll have .gov. Remember, anytime that a company or an agency has .gov and an address, it means it is a government agency. So federal student loan servicers are now have the .gov at the end. And then in California, you have your Bureau of Private Post-Secondary Education for those of you interested in attending a private institution. Just make sure they're accredited. You have your Student Aid Commission, and then your our information. DFPI has our Back on Track page. We have a YouTube channel, and then you have my email as well. Next, please. I think that is it for my portion, and I do see some questions coming in.
Yes, thank you for that, Celina. And we are just encouraging everyone, go ahead. Now is the time to drop your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen if you haven't done so already. And we will start going through some audience questions. Thank you, Celina, for sticking around for that. And maybe just to kick us off, I see that Lorraine asked, what is the Borrower Defense Program? And this might be in reference to the Federal Borrower Defense to Repayment Program. If you want to just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's a discharge program for borrowers with federal loan. It's administered by the Department of Education, and it's for borrowers that attended schools that basically, if a borrower feels that they were misled, that they were lied to, in order to get them to attend the school and to take on student loans. So we have seen right now, you may be hearing a lot about that. The Sweet Cardona case is a big borrower. It's a class action lawsuit, basically, where hundreds of borrowers had applied for borrower defense discharge, and this applies to schools. You probably heard ITT Tech, the Art Institute. So a lot of these for-profit institutions basically were operating or misled borrowers, right? And a lot of borrowers took on a lot of student loan debt. And so this program has been in place for a long time, but I think most notable in the last few years, there's been mass discharges under this program. A student can still apply individually, or a borrower can still apply. They just have to meet certain criteria, right? That the school, they just have to feel that the school misled them and they promised them things that they weren't able to provide. So if that information is on the studentaid.gov website, and you can look at the criteria and then how you can apply for the program.
Excellent. Thank you for telling us more about that program. I think little known and a lot of work to make sure that borrowers know about that, especially if you find yourself in that position. We know that there are still borrowers waiting for that loan discharge because they were, at one point thought they were going to be a part of that school and are no longer, those schools are no longer in existence. So.
Right.
Good question. All right, next, we have a question from Jade. If you're on Save, can you go back to IDR? And then follow-up question on that, why would you go back to an IDR plan versus staying in the Save plan?
So just to clarify, SAVE is one of the IDR plans. So IDR is income-driven repayment, and it refers to all four of the current plans, income-based plans. So SAVE is one of the plans. So Right now, really, the guidance that we're giving is to really just wait a bit before you make any changes. Wait until you, we get additional guidance, right? It's all gonna, it's very case by case. It's gonna depend on your type of loans, on really what you're trying to achieve. You may be under, one of the forgiveness programs. You may wanna be paying off your debt as soon as possible. So it's really going to be a case by case basis. They did just open up some of the other IDR plans, right, where borrowers are able to choose, but because of everything that's been going on, it's not going to be a fast process. So right now, I think we are just waiting for additional guidance, and it really is going to be on a case by case basis. So you can reach out to someone at the network, and they can look at your individual situation. You just make sure when you contact them, you know your loans, the loans that you have, and as I said, know what your goal is, right? So you may want to just wait until to see what happens with all the litigation, and then continue on your way, or wait until maybe they might want to roll back out the repay. So there's many options, but I would encourage you to contact someone at the network, and they can more clearly explain what is best for you at this time.
Thank you for that clarity and advice on that piece. And now Kathy asks, you mentioned, Celina, a state program for mental health providers to apply for forgiveness that opens up annually. And maybe can you just restate that program and any other additional information you can provide? And Kathy, just know that we will be sending out a resource packet, so you'll get, plenty of links and contact information after today as well. But Celina, if you could maybe just recap that piece real quick.
Well, I mean, I don't work too much with like administering or that application, but it is through the Department of Healthcare Access and Information. And I've actually just recently reached out to them to see if I could start bringing them onto our webinars, right? So they can provide more in-depth information, because it's a little known, these programs, really a lot of people don't know about them, a lot of borrowers. So I think it's really important that we do have this information up to date, and just really provide more, right, more resources to borrowers, because this is on the state level. These are not federal, on the federal level. But if you look up their, the website, and I provided the links in the PowerPoint, so hopefully we can give those out to, send those out to borrowers.
Yes, and that's a good point. We know that there's many tuning in from across the country as well. So please dig through your states. They might have their own programs as well, in addition to what's federally available. And if you have, your own kind of student aid commission agency, there are other states with a student loan ombudsperson, like we do here in California. We're very lucky to have Celina as our first ombudsperson. Please look for those resources. There is additional help.
And I do have to mention, I was just actually working on a list of nationwide ombuds, and they do have these programs are not always, or these offices are not always under the Consumer Protection Agency, but really look, they might be under your Attorney General's office, your Department of Financial, like institutions or something. So and just make sure that when you are looking these up, these are your state agencies. So they'll just be consumer resources, or consumer student loan resources, but make sure when you're looking up that information, it is under a state agency. But yes, we have about 20 states that have some sort of student loan resource or advocacy program for borrowers. Thank you for mentioning.